tonight's 2 episodes of Andor and the Emmy winner for episode 9, Dan Gilroy.
Thank you so much. It's a big crowd.
It is.
Don't any of you have TVs? I mean, I'm kidding. I've seen it. Actually, this was made production values to be seen on a big screen. I mean, it was never supposed to be released theatrically, but my brother Tony and my brother John, who's in charge of post, this was all mixed and everything for the studio. I mean, for a theater.
Well, it sounds and looks like it. And it's a pleasure to see it this big. It is. You feel the cinematic power of it. But I would love to talk about the writing of it.
Let's talk about the writing of it.
Because it's so powerful and so skillful and so emotional. 2 very different episodes, but one of the things that your brother, who was here last night, talked about was the idea of smuggling in, of always keeping us in our seats, on the edge, anticipating what would happen next, waiting for the next episode. But while doing that, getting at things that were important to you. And in the first of the episodes today, we looked at the Axe Forgets. We're with Cassian, the device that's keeping our attention as they're planning to break in and pull off this heist. It's a little bit of Guns of Navarone, these old kind of action planning adventure movies. But we're also learning about what it is to be a rebel and why. And I was wondering to what extent all of those elements of what kind of drives people to become a rebel and the pressures that those people are putting on Cassian were part of the mix, part of what you wanted to smuggle in.
Yeah, I mean, you should understand, if you're going to step way back, that the writer's room was my brother Tony last night, and me, and a guy named Bo Willimon who did House of Cards. We are 3 very politically inclined people, and we're not inclined to the right. So the writer's room formed, and anybody who's from the right, I respect your opinion. I'm just saying I'm not, and we were not. So just to give you context for the episodes, when the writer's room started, Trump was in his second year of his first term, and we were all horrified. And so as we're working on the show, it's a political show. So right away, as you said, we're not looking to make a political show because that's of itself, it's boring. You have to entertain. But at anything we're working on at any moment, we're thinking of what are the political ramifications of it. So what Tony came up with, which was so brilliant, was about the show was a couple things. One, instead of showing Star Wars from an adventure spectacle standpoint, he's going to show the granular reality of what it's like to live in the Empire, and it sucks. So he's going to follow that. The other thing is he focused in on that people are going to be making choices in this film where they are politically, where they are and what they believe. So when you go to 105, which is prior to the heist, what you're seeing there, and really the driving engine of that is, you are seeing, I forget, is it 5 characters, maybe 6 characters, who have committed themselves, who have made the jump. They've made the jump. I'm going to risk everything I hold dear for something bigger than me, and I'm going to commit a violent act. That's what I'm going to do. But the interesting thing is, as I was writing that episode, and we talked about it a lot, was why are each one of them there? They're all there for different reasons. And this is the interesting thing about activism. This is the interesting thing about rebels or patriots or whatever you want to call them. Everybody is there for a different reason, because you can talk a lot about the larger intellectual thematic reasons why these things happen, but it ultimately comes down to a person decides, I'm going to do something. So in 105, you've got Nemec, who's a total idealist, who's writing a manifesto. He's there for that. Turns out that Skeen is there because he's going to try to rip everybody off. The guy who works at the facility, he had a relationship with a woman who was indigenous to that planet. They killed her. He's now got a personal gripe. So what we're trying to track always throughout the show is why are people doing what they're doing or not doing what they're doing. So in 105, you are watching people who are there for different reasons, but what's interesting is they're united by the same goal. Because that goal is larger than them. So when I know I speak for myself, but certainly for Tony and certainly Bo. Bo is a very, very strong political dude. These are holy topics. This is a religion to me. This is something that you die for. This is not something you take lightly. It's not something you take for granted. It's not something you try to ignore. This is when you realize what's going on and you make a decision. You are dying for this. And many of them do die for shit. So that's 105.
That's wonderful, and it comes across with the passion and force that you just spoke. I'm struck because I was among rebels at one point in my life, and much of what you say and much of what you see up there was reflected in my experience. There were people who had been in prison and like skiing, and to some extent like Cassian and Nemec, or not Nemec, but in his time on what's the prison planet in our?
Oh, Aldani.
No,
Narkina 5.
Narkina, yeah, like his time. It changes people. Others are there for various reasons, and then there are people like Cassian who are passing through for the money.
Well, he thinks he's passing through.
Yeah, he thinks he's passing through. Yeah. One of the things, not passing through. Yeah. One of the things.
That's a lot of people, I think, get involved and think they're passing through, only to find out that they're way too deep to be passing through anymore. I think a lot of people get absorbed into things politically that they don't realize how deep the water is until they suddenly try to swim.
They're not conscious of it at the time, and then suddenly.
No, until suddenly there's a price to be paid. It should never come as a surprise if you do something like this, that there is a price to be paid.
Well, one of the beautiful things about seeing this episode 5 and then coming all the way ahead to 9 is how he's still wrestling with this idea of choosing. Yeah. And in 9 it's expressed over and over again, I'm done. To what extent was the idea of his sort of deciding he was part of something bigger than himself factored into or played against the characters like Dedra and Cyril, who's just a guy eating cereal in episode 5 with his mom? To what extent they too seem defined by their obligation to something bigger than themselves, and they're pushing in their case they're pushing against something they need to do that's opposite that, yeah, or no?
Well, it shows about extremism. Ultimately it is, and so you're talking about there are extremists on both sides. Yeah. And when I say extremism, when I talk about people who are like-minded like me, I don't think of myself as extremist. I think of myself as a patriot. I think of myself in all the positive terms. When you think about the extremists that we're following, like Dedra or Cyril, we are again tracking what are their motivations for doing that. And the motivations are different. What you find out about Dedra, because it comes in one of the early episodes, she was an orphan. Her parents put her up. She was raised by the state. So we always imagine that she rebelled against her parents, who put her up for adoption and absorbed as such. She was unequivocally going to support the state no matter what. But Cyril, in 208, when he finally realizes what's going on, Cyril's belief in this, and again, Cyril's there for need. Cyril's had no father figure. He sits there eating cereal with his mother, who's not a positive force in his life in any circumstance. He says the happiest day in his life was when one of his superiors at the ISB says, "Oh, you did a good job. That's the happiest day in my life." But the problem for Cyril is that he has spent the last 5 months roughly on that planet in infiltrating that group. And it turns out he likes them. He has no political beliefs to support a dislike toward these people. And when he's confronted with the truth, Dedra knows the truth. She doesn't give a shit about the truth. She's going to follow them to hell. But when he learns the truth, he no longer has a support net to pick up what he's just learned about this horrible thing that he's been involved in, and he backs away. He gets shot by Rylance, one of the guys who's the primary rebel rousers on Gorman. Yeah, the pistol guy.
The Gandhi guy became Terminator.
Exactly. Well, right. So.
No, Gandhi guy became Terminator and killed.
But I always believed when Cyril was putting his pistol down, I think Cyril would have become a rebel. Because there was nothing supporting him in that movement other than Dedra and somebody patting him on the head. But so we're tracking these people. There are people like that.
It's an agonizing...
It's your creation. So, but my reading of Cyril is different.
Okay.
He's a policeman. So he liked to capture and kill Cassian, but he doesn't like to kill civilians.
Right.
So he's a real policeman. So that my reading was, maybe I missed the part he loved so much, the rebel groups.
Right.
But that's why he doesn't like to attack innocent civilians, but he knows Cassian is a rebel and he wants to capture him because he was killing people. So he's a policeman. I'm not, are you sure he wants to join the rebels?
He has been a policeman through the whole show.
Yes.
However, when that day, when he goes up and when he Rylance stops him at the beginning in the street and tells him the truth.
Yep.
Everything you've told us is a lie. And Cyril now realizes that everything that he's been told is a lie. And the scene with Dedra, where he confronts her, he's not just shocked that they've been lied to him. He's shocked by by what they're actually doing. They're going to commit genocide on an entire planet. And and as I'm glad people have a difference of opinion. It's really good for people to see characters different ways. I imagine when I was writing him that emotional need that he had would not support him through that, and it might be maybe too far to say that he would put the gun down and instantly join the rebels. But I think his political point of view was radically shifted after his conversation with Dedra, that he'd been a pawn in something so big and so horrific that he couldn't get behind.
Well, my interpretation is the guy cannot accept that his superiors ordered them to commit genocide, to kill civilians, and that's why he refused to do it, and he defended. But he wanted to kill the real rebel, Cassian. So that's why he's still a policeman.
He might. I would Dan
No,
on
I love
Yeah.
it. I've had this conversation before, and I think I would not take that away from anybody. It's certainly possible.
No, it's true.
What the writer was intending is not by any stretch the final definition of it.
Oh, but you're God. You create the creator.
It's what the audience takes away from it.
Yeah, but you make him hesitate before he kills Cyril. So I love it. So you did that. You're fine. You're fine. No, I like it. No, I have a couple of questions more related with my profession. Pained my eyes. So I was shocked by how much you work on the Article 5272. So you make really the legal argument why the senator can pass the occasion to talk to the lady, and you make the argument very well, and you mention a very legalistic argument. The official senator was talking about this is a crisis, so we can't do that. So where it's coming from?
So you're talking about Monmouth's speech, or are you talking about
the senator who
Bale's intercession to allow it, the whole mechanism,
the
democratic mechanism.
The legal mechanism was very real.
We went back and forth on that. We were looking for a legal mechanism. We knew at that moment, realistically, that Mon Mothma had been identified as somebody who was going to say something inflammatory.
Cannot do it.
And they were going to try to shut her up. So we also knew, look, you have to understand, in Star Wars, the Galactic Senate had a history for hundreds of years of being a democratic body. So this was a bureaucratic body with codified laws, codified ways of doing things. So they knew that there was a bureaucracy in place that we could work with. So once we knew there was a bureaucracy that we could work with, obviously there are, when you watch C-SPAN, or when you get tremendously bored and you watch it, you can see all the parliamentary machinations they go through to try to get things done. People are constantly gaming it. So we knew that we could come up with a mechanism to game it. But Mon's speech is, something, I blew my deadline by over a month and a half. Just 'cause I didn't want to let go of that effing speech. It was just like, it was too important. And the thing about the speech is that, she's, what was going through my mind is that through the show, the last 2 years, which we're covering actually 5 years in the show, she's watched this body disintegrate and deteriorate into total, nightmarish dictatorship. And when she gives that speech, she's talking to two different audiences. She's talking to the senators who have abandoned their posts and left their constituents to absolute, utter evil. But she's also talking to the larger audience around the galaxy that she knows are going to hear her words. And now this goes back to choice. Because what does she know? She knows she's going to have a very limited time to impart something. It's not going to be the whole message by any stretch. What does she say? They're killing truth. There's no reality anymore. If that bothers you, then you need to do something about it. you need, I'm going to identify and point to the source of it. It's Emperor Palpatine. So what I love most about that is the fact that she at that moment is crossing the line, that the same line that everybody in 105 crossed. Anytime somebody acts in our show or in any of the Star Wars shows and does something against the Empire, they are crossing the line, and they're entering a church. They're entering a holy place where there's something bigger than them. So I love that she's immolating herself. She's burning everything she holds dear. She's probably not going to get out alive, but she's giving the speech anyway. That's the highest form of heroism to me. It's the premeditated act of putting everything that you hold dear on the line, and you're ready to give it away, knowing that you will probably never. Boy, there's a great speech in the first season. I forget what it is. Tony wrote it. It's Luthen's speech when the guy says, what do you sacrifice?
Yeah.
I sacrifice. That's an interesting thing, because he got involved, but then he had a kid. That's Lonnie. And Lonnie comes down to Luthen and he goes, I got to meet you. Hey man, I got a kid now. I got a family. I can't be doing this anymore. Now we realize how deep the water is. And I can't be doing this anymore. And Luthen tells him, you got to keep doing this. And he's like, I've given this. What have you given? And one of the key things that Luthen says is, I've given everything. I've burned everything in my life to make a sunrise I'll never see. It's very Martin Luther King. I've gone to talk about, I've seen it. I'm never going to be there with you. But it resonates as so true in your soul. If that doesn't hit you somewhere, then I don't speak the same language as you. That's either resonates or it doesn't resonate.
Where does this come from within you? I'm curious.
My father, my mother were very, very politically minded. My father was a combat veteran in World War II, overran the first concentration camp at 18. And he carried photographs with him. And it has an effect, about what people can do. I've never trusted authority. I never have. Because you know what? Authority is people. It's really a question how much you trust people. Don't trust them that much. Unless you really know them. But, people get into power. And everything gets fucked up. Look at communism. They had the perfect petri dish in the world. But it got infected by people, Not that I was going to communist. I'm just saying it's like systems get infected by us.
That's the point. What's happening if the rebels win? What will happen? How will life?
It would be. Oh God, that's such a good question. It's great. I love Lawrence of Arabia because at the end they actually sort of get to Cairo first and they take power and it descends into anarchy.
Yes, of course.
And that is an enormous. See, that is the problem. That is the problem. I mean, would they have the wherewithal? Because it's so fat. There's so many factions. There's so many disparate groups wanting so many different things. And we show that. Everybody wants something different. That is the question that's really chilling. What if the rebels won?
Well, and you lay the groundwork for that in watching Cassian sort of have to become a soldier, and Wilmon sort of pushing against that and all of that tension.
Well, Star Wars is such a beautiful thing because they have the Force. We don't have the Force. They have this magical thing that's like, everything's going to be okay. It's like, we got this great thing and people are going to be happy. And we don't have that. And it's like, in Star Wars, things work out, But not here somehow.
But the problem is, I think for me, this series is showing no exit, because I don't see the rebels could win, and if they win, it will be disaster too. So that's the problem. If you use war as a mechanism to manage conflict, is no exit, and that's what Andor is showing. Okay, is it the future? We have no future.
We did a lot of history, a lot of research about rebellions, and you look at ones that succeeded and ones that didn't succeed. Gandhi's really interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, nonviolence, arguably, eliminating British rule in India was arguably one of the greatest acts of rebellion of all time, of recent human history. I mean, it's incredible. And to do it with nonviolence. And yet he's taken by violence. And then what happens to India afterward, how it splits, and the religious sort of factions take back over. becomes more functioning than a lot of places do. I mean, then it sort of was relatively good outcomes. But even the act of committing yourself to nonviolence is a commitment that could lead you to absolute catastrophe and everything. I mean, it's just another form of doing it. I'm more of a believer in nonviolence than I'm in violence. I mean, I would use violence to defend myself and other people, but and I guess I would resort to violence if it got too bad. I guess I might, but I would try to use nonviolence. Nonviolence is the harder way to go. It's the more powerful way to go because it shames your enemy. Because the thing is what is the 208 on Gorman? The Empire is trying to use Gorman to ignite a backlash against the rebels. But right on the other side is Luthen. He's trying to use it to shock people into committing themselves to rebellion. And the beautiful thing about nonviolence is every moment you're shocking people into committing because you're being slapped, you're being hit, you're being beaten, you're not fighting back. It's the hardest thing in the world. But every blow, somebody's watching and going, I can't tolerate that. That I can't. There's no way to spin that. So that's why nonviolence is so powerful.
One of the things you mentioned just a second ago, and that's so beautifully said, you said, we didn't have the Force. Your brother touched on decisions that he made before launching even season 1.
Yeah,
he mentioned offhandedly at one point that there was a 100-page document.
Yeah, there was. We were working from.
What did you inherit, and what besides no Force were the operating principles that you came on board with?
The operating principles were always that the characters were going to drive the story. It was a granular story. It wasn't about spectacle. It was about following people making decisions. That people making life and death decisions about things they believe in is just as entertaining and compelling as any spectacle. And I believe that. And I write spectacle. So I mean, I totally believe that. In terms of the Force, Tony didn't want the Force. Tony really didn't want the Force in the show at all. But I think Bo and I started really pushing on it. And so he sort of said, well, I'll have this faith healer, and she'll sort of represent the Force. I leaned into that really hard. I took it even farther because I realized that Bix, that was going to be the moment. Bix was going to become a believer in the Force before he was, and that once she realized that he was a player and a very important cog in this play that was acting out, that when he came back from Gorman and said, I'm done. This is great. We're going to spend all this time together. He was signing this death warrant with her. That was it. She was going. There was no way she was going to take him off the battlefield when he was so needed because she believed in it. So the Force became very important. I like the Force in Star Wars. I'm probably more spiritual than Tony. I mean, maybe I shouldn't say that. Maybe Tony, we don't have that many conversations about it. But
he talked a lot about theology.
He
talked a lot about theology last night.
Okay, well, good. So I definitely have a Force that is a spiritual belief. I don't know if it's it's not as ritualized as probably other people's, but I definitely believe in something bigger than me. I'm not saying it's good or bad, but I do believe in something. I know when I'm touched by something in a way in my soul that I feel that doesn't reach it in other ways. So it was not hard for me to imagine Bix acting on something like that.
Yeah, and that moment, it's very interesting. That moment in episode 8, which seems it's so beautifully set up because he's dismissing it,
yeah.
and he's pissed about the interference and he's running away from it. But it gives the moment when she lays hands on him and sees something more in him. It gives it this extra aura, and Bix receiving that deepens it. It functions just.
I took that a lot farther than Tony had his outline because I wanted to put it in there, and he liked it.
What were some of the other? You talked. It was about character. It was about making decisions. It was not about spectacle. Were there other?
Well, I wrote 208. I wrote Gorman. I mean, Gorman.
It's spectacle.
Well, it's spectacle, but it's really always driven by the characters. Every character is operating under a different motivation. Everybody's pursuing something different. I knew I had done a lot of studying of history even before I wrote the show. It's the idea of the squad that goes in and they shoot their men. False flag.
Yep.
I mean that goes back to Poland in '39. That goes to the Gulf of Tonkin. I mean these are tried and true elements when you're trying to incite some false concept of what's really going on. So it was a chance to put that in there. on a purely commercial level, it was a chance to bring K2 in, the robot. They very much wanted K2 in there.
Yeah.
That was a big. They wanted K2 in like they wanted air. So that was like we're bringing K2. Matter of fact, in the writers' room, K2 was supposed to have his own episode, which I wrote, but it was too expensive. and so it got bounced down to the K2 introduction there. We brought K2 in that way. It was, you're following the death of the rebellion on Gorman. These poor people have been played by both sides and are now going to pay an incredibly high price. I love the end of the episode when they're broadcasting to empty space, come and help us, and nobody's going to come and help them, because that's what they're up against.
I was really struck, and I'm glad you mentioned it because I didn't have a chance to bring it up with Tony yesterday, but the massacre in Gorman, I've been thinking about Saving Private Ryan. Tony and I talked briefly about that, and how different a film that is from this series because of the empathy that you spread around to the different participants in the conflict. The Saving Private Ryan, we're always with the unit. In this film, we're all over the place. But the massacre in Gorman, it's not like the opening of Private Ryan, which is just graphically horrific. It's really about what's happening to the individual characters.
When the shit hits the fan, it gets pretty graphic.
It does get pretty graphic, but it's still, you really zero in on how is this affecting Cyril, how is this affecting Cassian, how is this affecting Dedra, and rather than just overwhelming us with the graphic horror of it all, you're really seeing how these
we had
events
to
lay
modulate it. It's really interesting. There's a thing now, you guys probably don't know about it. You can actually watch people reactions to things. Reacting the first time they heard a song, first movie. They'll do anything. This is probably on there. There's many people reacting to the episodes of 208. And while what you say is true objectively, for your Star Wars fan, your average Star Wars fan, it was shocking.
Yeah.
They were like, you can see people's reactions. They cannot believe that there are point blank shootings going on and snipers blowing people's heads off on the show. They were reacting very, very intensely because they had not ever been seen that in a Star Wars show. And what I like about that, and I do compare that to the opening of Private Ryan, I've watched every freaking war movie in the world because my father was in a war and I was interested in it. But Spielberg for the first time showed the true horror, nightmarish, nihilistic disaster of killing people on that scale and that opening speech and all the way through it, and it's phenomenal. You see it and you go like, war really? War sucks. I'm not going to glorify anything about this. The war effing sucks, and so does genocide.
But okay, Spielberg also showed after the war is okay. The war is to protect America, protect democracy, protect family. So it plays both sides. But talking about Saving Private Ryan, there's a line in Saving Private Ryan when Captain Miller is dying, and Ryan tells him, "What I can do, make it worth." And you make the same line. Took from there.
Who says make it worth it in our show?
When Miller is dying.
Yeah, I know. When Tom Hanks is dying, he says that. But who says that in our show?
Tom Hanks. In your show.
Cassian.
Yeah, Mom, the senator. No, the senator say.
Mom says make.
Mom say that when Cassie say, Mom asked Cassie, how can I pay you? And
wow.
And he say, make it worth.
Tony fucking threw that in there. He didn't ask me about that. It's funny. Honestly, Tony, did we write a lot? I don't remember writing that line. That doesn't mean I didn't write it. Is that what she says? Make it worth it?
Exactly.
He says it.
That actually, there was a lot of changes going on in that episode. There was a whole other ending. There was an ending that I wrote that I thought they were going to shoot where he takes her off the planet. She wants to go back to her home planet where her asshole husband is and her daughter who hates her. And I had a whole scene where they kind of like, there was an interesting thing that was going on there, and they again, the budget crept in and they changed it. And they put that line, Tony stole it. I don't know. Plagiarism.
Okay. I have a question because yesterday we discussed, how to end the war, and historically, the solution is, that institutions. So civil war in 19th century in this country ended with an agreement, and then from there you have conflict, but it's a Congress, it's a Supreme Court, helping to harmonize differences. And in Europe, you have, for centuries, this fight between Germany and UK and France, and it's gone. European Union is solving the problem. So that's the beauty of this. It's a galaxy government. How can you do stories about this Congress institution working, who are normally boring? How can you do interesting and attractive?
Well, I'm always interested in any film that has to do with the institutions of justice. Judgment at Nuremberg, old film, but you can see how justice applies to a topic that's never been broached before: crimes against humanity. How do we define it? How do we do it? You headed up, an international court on this very topic. So institutions are our only hope. Law is our only hope, ultimately. Some sort of codified way of living.
Can we include this in the next season?
Well, you got to come up with a story that allows that to happen. Look, I did my second film about social justice, and I'm very proud of it. But weaving that stuff in is very difficult. But I do believe in doing it. My whole second film is about weaving in social justice.
Well, more than, because the real thing is courts help to convince people that there are rules, but the senators and the executive branch in particular have to respect the rules too. So that fight is a real fight, because the soldiers are, as you present so well, they follow instructions, they follow orders, and they do for promotions, for having a nice life. So the soldiers could be in any way, in any side.
Well, if I can think of another film to do it, I will do it.
You certainly have the skill. I was watching episode 9, and I was thinking, this is about somebody giving a speech. It's a thriller about somebody giving a speech. We're like on the edge of our seat. Is she going to speak? Is she not? Is somebody going to stop? It's a speech. As though it was a heist or something. So
But it's all context. It's everything.
Of course,
it's all context.
but
It's very Guillen, the professor of this house, said very clearly, you fight your wars twice. First in the battlefield, then in the memory. And the narratives are about the memory. And that's why this fight is about the memory. Goldman tells it happened, but to remember it, but to show it. So that is.
No, I know, but what I'm saying is that he put it. Dan made us.
Well, look, I think we live in an age where spectacle does sort of dominate, and again, it's lucrative, and I do it, and a lot of people do it. But it really, if you can, a great drama, if you have a heart and a soul, a great drama will compete every day with. I've done car chases, I've crashed things, I've blown things up. A great drama will blow me away on more levels than any spectacle that you could ever imagine. I think. But they're hard to do.
Tony last night said that season 1 you were laying the groundwork for what you thought initially were going to be 5 seasons of this, 5 years. You realized after that,
he did, yeah. He and Diego said it's crazy. They would have been doing this for the next 8 years. I don't blame them. I wouldn't want to do it. It's so much work. It's too much work.
When you got back to do season 2, he said you had a lot of liberty from Disney. They
never touched us.
Yeah, and he said now we felt free to smuggle things in.
Yeah.
To make it a more political show. What was on your mind? What were you thinking? Because you couldn't have known where this was going to land. You were working on this how many years ago?
Well, I had a sense I was going to be doing that block. Even at the beginning of the writer's room, this block right here that I did do.
You had those 3.
And it was 22. It was 22 or 23. Trump was out of office, but it was really apparent that an infection had started in the country that was not going away. And what I was particularly pissed off about, just like Lon, was all these motherfuckers who claimed they believed in shit in the Congress and the Senate, who just caved, just cravenly caved, and are caving every day politically. Just you could put them on C-SPAN, MSNBC, CNN, Fox, and show them 3 hours of tape of them claiming that they were against this and against January 6th and against that, and this is impeachable and that's that, and now it's just like everything is roses and I support them. Then you just see how craven political figures can be. So I was pissed. I'm still pissed. I'm furious.
I feel it.
So writing, when I knew I was just going, just give me that block. Give me that fucking block. That's what I was thinking about. But then, all the other stuff, you gotta, there's a lot of mechanics you gotta work out. What's the Senate look like and where are they going? It just takes forever. I mean, it's really
It's a lot of work.
grinding work. I'm not complaining at all. It is grinding work. Good. Writers, that's it. Set anything. What does it look like? Where are we?
Yeah, it's incredibly skillful, and all that skill gave you the opportunity to express what you were pissed off about.
I'm at the right place in my life to do it right now. I've seen a lot, I've done a lot, and I'm committed in a lot of ways to saying this right now. So, when I was younger, I was your guys' age. I was pretty political, but I wouldn't want to say I certainly did not have the passion I have right now for these things because I was young. I was living my life in a different way, and I don't judge younger people for that, at all. But I think it's a lot more difficult when you're young. You have a lot more at stake. I mean, it's easy for me. I could get up. I mean, I wrote something in Deadline a couple weeks ago, and I'm getting all sorts of flack from all sorts of weird ass people. But and I had no problem doing it. I don't really give a shit about that. But if I was younger, I would think about, oh man, I got a new wife or a new family or a dog, and what are they going to do? And my daughter, and maybe I might lose a job over it. So it's kind of easy for me to step up there a little bit. I'd like to think that I was younger, I might have done it, but I respect anybody who's young who gets involved in a way that it could cost them something, because the stakes are only getting higher every day. This is not going away by any stretch. It's not going away. It's going to get worse a lot worse.
One of the tensions that Cassian is experiencing throughout is, and he talks about this, I make my own decisions. And
He thinks he does.
He thinks he does, yeah. Well, I think a lot of us, especially in the culture we grew up in here in the United States, if you did grow up in the United States, puts a real value on individualism and free choice.
Yeah.
And what you feel as this show moves through season 1, then season 2, and you're watching people on different sides of this horrible conflict try to navigate as individuals, is that we either are part of something bigger than ourselves that's really narrowing the choices we have, or we're encountering something that means enough to us that we may have to abandon those choices. Is that kind of part of your cosmology?
Oh yeah, no, definitely. I was fascinated by the Arab Spring, which started with like a cart food guy getting slapped in the face by a policeman and immolating himself on the steps of their Congress, and it toppled 9 governments. And then a very interesting movement just toppled the government in Nepal, and it's spreading.
Yeah,
it's a youth-driven social inequality movement, and it's taking off like wildfire. It's becoming global. But and it's so the whole show's about choice. Everybody's got to find. So there's a lot of people right now going like, why are more people protesting? Well, there's people protesting to a certain degree, but there's not been the thing like the Vietnam War that's united everybody.
Yeah.
We have not had the moment like in Tunisia where suddenly something like that sets it off. Or a thing in Nepal where social inequality reaches a point that sets it off. This country will have that moment. What it is, will it be when naturalized citizens are sent to hell? Or will it be when journalists are jailed? I don't know. Something is coming where everybody's going to have to go, I can't tolerate that. I can tolerate what's going on now. I don't like ICE. I don't like this. I tell people I don't like it. That's about as much as I want to get involved. But there's a very good chance that everybody in here is going to have a moment where you're going to have to decide, I really can't tolerate that. My level of tolerance is low because I was raised that way. I don't like being pushed around. I don't like being told what to do if I think it's wrong. It makes me more entrenched. I instantly will fight that. That's me. But other people will have a slower burn, and they'll have to find something that really ignites it in them. And you will find many opportunities, I think, coming up, unfortunately.
You came in, and listening to you talk, it becomes even more palpable to me. You came in with a lot that you wanted to get off your chest, a lot you wanted to express, and Andor opened the channels for a lot.
Same with Bo. Bo is very strong. I mean, how's
champing at the bit?
He has 3 generations of like union, hardcore like civil rights. I mean, really deep.
What did you discover that you hadn't figured coming into this? Was there anything about rebellion, about institutional bureaucracies that...
Yeah, I mean, writing the characters on the other side, writing Dedra and Cyril and the ISB people and Part Against, putting myself in their mindset and imagining what put them on the other side. We can never forget what brings people to the other side. Whether it's inertia, many people on the other side are just, they changed the name of my company one day and 4 of the people I work with are gone. I don't know, it seems okay to me. I mean, there's some people who just sort of go along with that. There's other people who get involved, because there's a way to make money off it. But these are motives. These are motivations that you need to understand, because you're going to go fighting against these people.
Were there any that particularly lit up inside of you as you were exploring those characters?
Cyril, his emotional need. Look, like I said, I'm a spiritual person in a lot of ways. I did have a period where I was involved in organized religion. Very interesting. I think people have the wrong concept of why people get involved in religion. It's not because they instantaneously believe in heaven or hell. It's because they find a community. There are a lot of lonely people out there. There are a lot of cut off people out there, and they find a community, and they will follow that community. I'm not saying anything bad about it. Cyril, what I loved about learning about Cyril and writing Cyril is a lonely guy who nobody respects, and he's having trouble holding his head high. And he finds in the ISB and he finds in Dedra something that he feels will command respect. And so that's a very strong motivation for many people to get involved. There are many people involved in MAGA who have a community. I'm deeply involved in working on conspiracy theories, and I have a script that I'm working on, and the Reddit boards and the communities you find. These are people sharing recipes for trail mix and talking happy birthdays, and these are communities. They're not just so it's you got to look at it the community aspect of finding a home. That a lot of the people I think involved in MAGA don't even look at it as a political thing. It's not really even. It's get-togethers. It's common stories. It's very interesting. It's very human. Again, I think we can really get not lost. It's really important to look at the intellectual, institutional reasons why things happen. But it comes down to people. If you understand people, you are going to be way ahead of the game. Understanding the reasons why people do things make more sense somehow.
I couldn't agree more, and I know Luis and I talked about this a lot over the years, that one of the forces that keeps perpetuating mass crimes and genocides is the act of dehumanization. Yes. And as challenging as it is to humanize even perpetrators of mass crimes is essential, because in doing so you recognize that in some way or another we carry these dimensions within ourselves.
Oh my God, of course, we totally do. The banality of it. And one other thing you're talking about, demonizing people and the press is massively important in all this. Journalism is massively important. So that's why we start off episode 208 with the Imperial News, and we end it with the Imperial News, because it's the critical component of everything that's going on. It's the story that's being broadcast. Because we think we're making choices. We're not really making. We are products of our subconscious, which are products. It's endlessly neurologically proven that we are not really at any moment in charge of what we think we're in charge of. We are operating under sets of instructions that we don't even understand. We are highly susceptible to a suggestion. We are easily hypnotized. We are easily led astray. So Goebbels figured it out in a way that nobody ever figured out before. Everything he came up with is being used today. We used it in the show. It is just portraying your enemy in a certain way, starting to talk about national security, starting to talk about our heroes, and even if you go outside the Imperial News, even if you went to a quote-unquote journalist at the end of 208 and you said not Imperial News, what do you think happened in Gorman? What story can they tell? A bunch of soldiers who represent the government got killed, and there's a bunch of nondescript people who are dead who tried to kill them. Well, it's kind of a tragedy, our soldiers were killed. The story sort of writes itself. That's the way it's designed. So, but the controlling of news, the controlling of journalism is the critical component of everything, because that's how you conduct mass hypnosis. That's how you turn people against a race or a planet, and it's not hard to do. It's really not hard to do at all.
Luis, I think we'll
Oh yeah, no, we're going
let, this is wonderful, but I do want to hear, if any of you have questions, there are microphones, one there and one there. So if you have questions for Dan, this would be the moment. Oh my goodness.
I talk fast, it's okay.
He does. He talks way faster.
Okay, over here, and we'll have to go quickly. Yeah. Your brother said yes, no questions.
Okay.
Yes, please, over here.
Hi, I'm Tony Gilroy. Thank you so much for coming out tonight. Just a few questions, small questions. What's the decisions of making Citizen of Gorman sound kind of French? Is that like historical context?
That was my brother Tony's idea. He wanted to make them French. I think because of the French resistance, the idea that there was a historical component to it, the fact that history was repeating itself, that was just a basic choice that he made very early on.
Okay.
They came up with a whole language for it, the Gorman language. I love this song. I love their anthem.
He has.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, over here.
Hello, thank you for being here. I would love it if you could talk about the difference between characters and rebels that you let live and rebels who you let die. Or like, not even rebels, just characters. You have Cyril, obviously, in Gorman. You have, I think, Cloris to some extent, who seems, I think, to show some inkling of maybe awakening in some sense. He doesn't bring his pistol. And I think he could have some potential for joining the rebellion. Then in Aldani, you've got Termin, Nemec, Gorn, they die.
We were always trying to kill people who you didn't want, who you didn't expect were going to be killed. This is an old narrative story. You want to shock people with the deaths. Like I think the most shocking death in season 1 was Nemec. Poor little Nemec with his manifesto gets crushed by all the gold. Like it's just like, oh my god! Like when you watch these people reacting while they're watching it, it just crushes them. And it's like, yeah, that was supposed to be right. They shot Cloris in a very weird way. Cloris was always supposed to be bad. I never understood how the way they shot it, that he was sort of seemed sympathetic. He's not supposed to be sympathetic, at least not when I wrote it. But again, Tony's fucking it up. I wasn't on the set enough. I think that was the problem.
And Vel and Cinta, why were they the only ones that survived along with Andor? Was that a conscious choice, or?
No, that was luck of the draw. They would never in the room. We knew a certain number of people were going to die, and I think we were all just looking at each other. Cinta's going to die. Let's kill Cloris. You know, no real rhyme or reason for that. I mean,
Thank you. Yes.
Hi, thanks for all this amazing discussion that you have. Like my question start with like my feelings for season 1, right? For season 1, I feel it's super great in the sense that brings Andor from this nobody or the rogue, right, like figure. It doesn't have any belief, while meeting of different people, right, like Nemec or different other leaders like Lucen and Mon Mothma, right, just gaining the strength or the belief that he had.
Right.
I was hoping to get more out of in season 2, where he will, like Andor might find more solution or the way out, right? But I guess it's not in my participation. It's not working out in season 2. I guess your brother Tony answered partly for that question in the sense that you guys want to focus on more broadly, right? Every facet of the revolution. But I'm like intrigued, like on one line that happened to show on this episode 9. Right. There's the on the plaza, right, where Lucen is wearing black and Mon Mothma are wearing white, right? It's pretty symbolic. Right. I was thinking like these two are the kind of opposite in terms of revolutionary ideas. I was fascinated by that line in which Lucen said, it said like how false savior or something like that, right? I'm curious, is that a critique that Lucen's made on Mon Mothma, or is it more?
Was he calling her a false prophet, or was he a false savior?
A false savior, or something like that.
He calls that to her. He said that to her.
Yeah, to her. But I'm curious, is it saying to
the banker, her banker friend?
Oh, the banker friend.
Takolma.
Takolma. I was wondering, is that made to Takolma or Mon Mothma?
I think it was made to Takolma. Takolma was a threat. He started off with the right instincts. He wanted to help fund her, but he, through his own personal faults and weaknesses, he became a threat to them. And she brought him up. She was bringing up Takolma because she was saying, "I don't trust you because you killed Tay. Now you're probably going to kill me." Right. And I think Luthen felt the need at that moment to say, "Takolma is not you. Takolma had a problem." I think the reason they were dressed in black and white is because they wanted to emphasize the fact that Mon looks at Luthen as a very dangerous figure, and he is. He's a very dangerous figure in a lot of ways.
Thank you very much. Yes.
Good evening, Mr. Gilroy. First of all, thank you for coming to USC. Congratulations on your Emmy win.
Thank you.
You talked a lot about the youth and how youth has more to risk when they're speaking out and being activists. Yet you wrote such a powerful character in Nemec, and I'm kind of wondering what kind of inspirations did you draw when you were writing that character, and what was really going through your head when you were planning, what he had to say and his fate, and also what is your message to the next generation of activists and the next generation of Nemecs?
When it comes to Nemec, I wanted an idealistic young people have a purity. You guys aren't muddy from life. You guys sort of like have, and I try to keep my idealism intact as much as possible. So I look at youth as having a purity of idealism. So I knew Nemec was going to be very young. I wanted to kill him because I wanted him to sort of become almost sort of a prophet. I wanted his words to live on, not him.
Yes.
In terms of what I would say to people today, I would be, oh man. Well, everything that's going on politically and everything that's going on in reality. AI is going to take everything to an entirely other level in terms of surveillance, in terms of government overreach, in terms of controlling your lives, in terms of spinning a story that's not true. It's democracy's nightmare and a dictator's dream to have the controls that China has in place right now, and other countries that are starting to use Planeteer and all these other nightmarish programs in which they're collecting data and cross-referencing it in a way that will control you in ways you don't even know. And activism is becoming increasingly difficult and dangerous with these tools in place. So I can't really say it's a message of hope, but I believe if you feel something's worth fighting for and you can't tolerate something, then do it. That's what I believe.
Thank you so much. Have a good night.
Yes.
Hello, Mr. Gilroy. Thank you so much for coming by. I told your brother this yesterday regarding Michael Clayton and now about this show. Most of my friends know that I never shut up about this. So
Good.
My question I'm going to selfishly ask, because I'm in the process of writing my thesis. I asked a similar question last night. A lot of your work is very rich, both politically and sociopolitically, in like theme and like what it's about. And there's a very clear message to, especially this season. How do you kind of stay the course in terms of staying true to character and not losing sight of the character's journey through all of this and getting lost in the messages or the themes involved?
Well, it's not just that you got to keep track of the character, but you got to keep track of the whole story. It's like if you come up with something that has a theme to it, you can't hit it hard. You can't. Just a little bit goes a long way. And your characters should never get up on a soapbox and preach. Yeah. I mean, sometimes it works. There's an old movie called Norma Ray about union busting, and she gets up on a crate and she starts actually giving. I mean, sometimes people give speeches. You go back a million years, meet John Doe. I mean, he gives a freaking speech. That one like 10 Academy Awards or something. So I mean, you can do it. It's very problematic, particularly this day and age. I mean, it's tough. It's a balancing act. No question about it.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Sure.
This will have to be our last question. So I
Okay, so I do have a two-part question with a possible follow-up depending on how you answer.
You're breaking the rules. You get one, and then we really have to go. I'm sorry.
What would it take for Dedra to make the choice to back away from the Empire? Not necessarily to join the rebellion, but to stand down from the Empire? And does Dedra's fall from the ISB really make any difference? Is it just that they'll find someone else in the galaxy equally motivated and brutal, or is this the point, as we were talking about yesterday, where fascism falls as it consumes the people that support it?
Dedra's never going to back away. She gets tested in what? There's an episode earlier on where the whole genocide program is laid bare. Now that's based on a real situation. That was called the Wannsee Conference in World War II. The Wannsee Conference was a 2.5-hour lunch attended by the top members of the Third Reich and the SS, and it was recorded. It was a transcript. You can read it, in which they pretty much lay out all of the things for the genocide. Now we took that and we wrote a scene in which the guy, not Partagas, the other guy, Krennic's going to tell everybody what's going on. So they tell everybody what's going on, and now you go to Dedra standing by the window, and he says, "I want you to be in charge of this." Now she knows where this is going to go, and she goes, I don't think I want to do this. I don't think this is the right thing for me. She knows where this is probably going to go, and she doesn't want to do it. But he says, I want you to do it. She does it. She takes the job. She goes to Gorman, the massacre happens, and what do we see afterward? There's a scene where she's alone in a room, and she literally can't, this uniform is crushing her. So she knew what was going to happen, and that she did not back off. So nothing's going to pull her out. There are people who are going to make bargains with themselves that will shock their friends and will shock them ultimately too. There will be people who will do things that even as they're doing them, they can't believe they're doing them, and afterward, for the rest of their lives, they will not be able to forget they did them. She will never be able to forget that she did it, but it will never stop her. It doesn't matter that she went to jail. There's unfortunately so many human beings who will make exactly the same bargain for either similar reasons to her, probably not, she was in an orphanage, she had her own particular thing, but they will make that for other reasons. I don't care about humanity, and I see a way of climbing the ladder. That's the big one, truly. You go to The Third Man, the great Orson Welles film, and he's up on the carousel. How many, would you crush 20 of them for $10,000 or 50 of them? Look, there's people, they're just ants down there.
The dots stop.
Yeah, there's people who look that way. There's people who look at humanity like that. It's shocking how many people look at humanity like that. It's shocking how many people live their lives like a transaction, And you'll have no problem filling that slot. There'll be people who do it better than her.
There will be fewer people doing it better than her who have seen Andor. So I think
We
that-
could answer all your questions, but
Yeah, I'm sorry we couldn't stay any later. Thank you all very much for coming in. Dan, huge thanks.